Will the sun shine on the brothers again? We all know how Loki died in Avengers Endgame, proclaiming he would return, and now one of the producers of the Loki series has given us some clue on if or when that could happen. Are you ready for Thor and Loki to team up once again? Because I think it's imminent. Because I think it's on the horizon. Well, many fans were pretty shocked in Avengers Infinity War, when right to kick off the film and establish how dangerous this movie is going to be, Thanos killed off the God of Mischief. Now, before he left a proclamation that the sun would shine on him and his brother once again, and ever since Loki got picked up by the TVA, we've been wondering, is that actually going to happen? And now we have a couple of clues on if and when that could happen. Now, Marvel doesn't do things for no reason, and I really do think they were setting this up from the beginning. But now, one of the executive producers for the Loki series has kind of chimed in, and it's clearly been something that's been in their thought patterns, and something I feel like now is absolutely imminent for the God of Mischief and Thunder. So recently, executive producer Kevin Wright was talking to Variety, and they were diving into what's going on in Loki Season 2. Now, Season 2 obviously begs questions of Season 3, and this led them to directly talking about the possibilities of the God of Mischief reuniting with his brother. And what Smith had to say was, well, pretty interesting. Now, in a discussion, he said they have to tee up Season 3, but he did make a particular statement about Thor and hinted at the possibility of Loki reuniting with his brother. He said, "That's the hope. I don't want to, I think the sun shining on Loki and Thor once again has always been the priority of the story we're telling, but for that meeting to really be fulfilling, we need to get Loki to a certain place emotionally, and I think that's the goal of these 2 seasons." Now, let's tear apart what he said because I think it's pretty interesting. First and foremost, we've really seen Loki evolve since he went to the TVA. If you remember correctly, the character did a lot of living from the point the timeline split. We had the events of Thor Dark World, where he lost his mother, Thor Ragnarok, where he finally made peace with his brother, and ultimately Endgame, where Loki met his demise. Now, we saw Loki kind of evolve early in Season 1. That continued to the end of the season, and it's likely we're going to see a lot of that during Season 2. Now, I did notice that he said specifically, that's been the goal of these 2 seasons, suggesting to me that this reunion is actually quite closer on the horizon than anybody's expecting. Now, that begs the question of when. And honestly, I think this reunion is completely being set up for the upcoming Secret Wars event. Fans desperately want to see Thor and Loki together again, and I think that's something Marvel is going to pay close attention to, and as they've been moving forward recently, fan service has become more important. The Thor-Loki reunion is something fans have been clamoring for since his death, because we all know Loki doesn't stay dead, and now all the pieces are perfectly in place for him to reunite with Thor, potentially in Secret Wars, or in whatever the MCU looks like after Secret Wars. Now, I think the evolution of the 2 brothers over the Thor saga and into Endgame was pretty epic, and as I always say, Hiddleston brings Loki to life in a way that's made the character almost as big as the MCU. Lots of what's happened across the MCU has spawned out of Loki, from the first Avengers movie and his tie with Thanos, driving a lot of the events in the first 3 phases, and now in the multiverse saga, Loki is once again at the center, so I suspect that's going to continue, and part of his journey is going to be reuniting with Thor. When that actually happens, well, we're going to have to wait and see.